Shana b'mitzvotav tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So we have a problem, and I'm just going to read you the problem in the form of a prayer, which is known to many of you from the High Holy Days. So on Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? And so I remember my first High Holy Days in Las Vegas, and I saw at the back of the room when we read this prayer, and I didn't give any particular preamble, I saw Lee Schreiber and Melinda Schreiber walk out of the room in tears. Okay? They had recently suffered a bereavement. Their husband, father, Scott, had died and from cancer, like before his time, one might say. And they just left. They couldn't deal with this prayer and felt it was a direct rebuke to their family and to their loved one. And so the problem or the challenge that Rabbi Lockheim have got for all of us is when we read this book, when we read this prayer, can we stay in the room? Okay, can we? Is it possible to stay in the room without taking this personally? Is it possible to see this prayer in a slightly different way? So I want everybody to grab one of these handouts and you can share it. JJ online.
Not that.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Just put that down. Yeah, it's not that one.
Yeah, some of you have a handout already which says changing of the mantles.
You can just put that handout
but this
down.
one is should say Selichot 5782 at column E.
We don't want you to share. Hopefully
And if at any point the folks at home want to share a comment or an insight, then I will keep a look at the chat box to see.
Oh, there's enough. I don't get ahead of.
Now,
they all have it.
We have a bunch of approaches and responses to this prayer. But before we go into them and ask the question, having read this response, okay, so now can we stay in the room when this prayer is read? All right? That's the constant question. Rabbi Locke, I'm coming. I think we want to. Oh, this is great. Look, we can.
Are people already talking?
Oh, they're not talking yet, but we're on TV. We're famous. So, just to give you a bit of background, there's a legend associated with the prayer. Right, this prayer. The Unatane Tokef, who will live, who will die. The background, the origin story, as it were, it's said that Unatane Tokef was recited by Rabbi Amnon from the 11th century, who'd failed to reject a proposal of apostasy immediately and instead asked for 3 days to consider it. When he did not agree to give up his faith, he was taken away and tortured brutally. And it was Rosh Hashanah, and he asked his disciples to take him to the synagogue, where he interrupted the service and recited this prayer in order to sanctify the name of God. Upon completing the recitation, he died. Later, the legend continues, he appeared to Rabbi Kalonymus in a dream and asked that this prayer be recited each year. Okay, so does the origin story help? But just give me responses, like how does that color your view of the prayer from the off? Tell me. He's been tortured brutally, and with his dying breath, he recites this prayer. So what does that do to our view of prayer? It's incredibly
It's very
sad, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. What was that, Andy?
So what's
Okay, so like Rabbi Akiva in the Talmud, and he's at the very point of death. Okay, and at that almost like the absolute point that he expires, the literal point he expires, he recites Shema. Okay, yeah, that's a helpful comparison. Yes, Tony, and then Lynn Ray.
Well, not to compare everything to movies, but there's a similar scene in the movie The Frisco Kid.
The Frisco Kid, a similar moment.
Where, yeah, he's like, the Native Americans are gonna burn his Torah unless he, renounces it.
I'm just repeating this for the benefit of the folks at home. So the Native American's going to, I haven't seen this movie.
Oh, wait. Oh, you haven't seen The Frisco Kid?
No, going to burn his
Oh, my
Torah if he
God.
doesn't renounce his religion.
Boy, we're going to burn you at the stake. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, The Frisco Kid. Gene Wilder is a cowboy in
And
San
Harrison
Francisco.
Ford.
Sure,
going
no, I know
from-
that much. I know that
Yeah.
much.
But at one point, he gets captured by these Native Americans,
Right.
and they're telling him that they're going to burn him unless he renounces his Torah, and he won't do it. And so eventually, it gets to the point where they're going to kill him, and he won't do it. But then they let him go. Then there's celebration and Native Americans. But it leads to the question of, do you choose life or do you choose the principle? And I don't know the answer.
Right, absolutely. And certainly Rabbi Amnon chooses the principle. Yes, Limro, what were you going to say?
Aside from this month reciting Psalm 27,
Right, Psalm 27, right.
many of the verses speak to an address that I will have no fear as long as I know that God is with me.
Okay.
And I believe that if you believe that your life is a single lifetime, then if it ends, it's going to cause you probably a lot more consternation and fear. If you don't believe that if you are living and directing yourself to live in the house of God, then I believe it just is the way it has to be. And so I go back to when I first heard this before I had had the experience of a lot of passings of a lot of different ways of people that I loved. And I would hear this prayer and it would be like, that is so archaic. People don't die that way. And now with the way the world is right now, I have a lot more empathy that none of us know how we're going to die and when we're going to die. And our best insurance is to live our life the best way we can.
Okay, so that prayer doesn't necessarily sting you in the same way that it might others. Yes, Herb.
No matter how you live your life, if you live a good and a holy, respectful life, when your time has come, your time has come. And no matter how many prayers you say or how many prayers you don't say, if you've done righteous and it's your time, you're going to go.
Okay.
So, but who determines that? So what strikes me with this particular prayer, and I actually stood up at a national rabbinic convention in San Francisco years ago, and we were talking about we were talking about creating Mishkan HaNefesh, and I stood up as the lonely voice that said, expunge this from the Reform Prayer Book, because what it appears to me as saying, oh, on June 22nd, 2023, so-and-so, I'm going to make sure so-and-so dies. Or, someone is going to be struck by lightning, and that's my call as God. And because it says, I know who will live and who will die, who will reach ripe age, who will be taken before their time. And God is making these determinations, at least the way I read this prayer. And so I had a complete revulsion about this prayer, that God is there as like at a deli counter going, number 23, that's your time is up.
So you're storming out of the room with the Schreibers.
Absolutely.
Okay, yes,
Absolutely.
Rabbi Seltzer.
Can I reply to Tom,
Sure.
please?
Well,
I
quick,
real quick.
because you don't want to get in the way of a rabbi.
I was drafted into the Army, and I had at least 4 times in my short 2 years in the Army
Yeah.
could have been sent over to Vietnam,
Yeah.
and I wasn't. And that strengthened my belief in a superior power that I have no control over, and I have to accept whatever my fate is going to be down the road, however far along it will be.
No, no, but my question is, did that power above say, "Oh, we're not sending you this time"?
In a way, indirectly, I believe that. I
Okay.
really
So
do.
then what
Fair,
about the
fair.
dude next to you who
All right,
got
wait,
sent?
let's.
Well, anyway, Rabbi Seltzer.
I appreciate the fact that my colleagues decided to challenge everyone this evening with a liturgical selection, which I think, if I were asked, and I have said this over the years, may be the most central motif of the high holidays. And we call the high holidays, not accidentally, Yamim Noraim, days of awe, and you can translate awe in many ways, days of profound examination, and days of fear and concern. And I think it also incumbent upon us not to forget that Rosh Hashanah is called Yom HaZikaron, a day of remembrance, and Yom Kippur, where this prayer is recited as well, is called Yom Hadin, the day of judgment. And unless we are prepared to simply, in the 21st century, say we're not going to call Rosh Hashanah Yom HaZikaron any longer, and we're not going to call Yom Kippur Yom Hadin any longer, I think we have to confront what, in my opinion, is the most powerful of every conceivable liturgical selection. And in particular, the verses that Rabbis Cohen and Lackheim have pointed out. If you don't take Barosh Hashanah Yikatevun, Uvayom Tzom Kippur Yechasemun, necessarily, literally, and if you remember that these words, this is on New Year's Day, our sentence is written down, and on the Day of Atonement, it is sealed. And remember that this is a prayer written in the medieval world, in another context. But then look at the rest of it. Who shall die? Who shall live and who shall die? Is it not true that when we come to the synagogue, none of us know whether we will live or whether we will die in the coming year? We do not know if we will be struck by a serious illness or we were hit by a truck on Tucson Boulevard. But even more significantly, look at what it says. Who by fire and who by water? You need go no further than the state of California
And New Mexico.
and New Mexico and see who by fire.
And Europe.
You need go no further tonight and tomorrow, let alone the previous year, to Puerto Rico, where a hurricane, a terrible hurricane, is about to create havoc.
But Rabbi Seltzer, here's my question. So no one's arguing that that people die from all different due to all different consequences throughout the year, right? That is, if you're saying people die because of different things, that's descriptive.
No, I'm
right? But the
saying because
theology-
we are acknowledging our fragility.
Sure.
We are acknowledging that life is a gift, and we neglect to add the very conclusion of the prayer, which we will all recite next week. Uteshuvah, utefilah,
You forget that.
utedakah, ma'avirin et roa hagzera. But repentance, prayer, and righteousness will temper the severe decree. Let me just take one example. Let me talk by earthquake and plague. Let's talk about plague. We're living through a plague, and there are multitudes of people in this country who have refused to even take a single shot. And therefore, we have not addressed this plague as we might have. And in terms of earthquake, we are having earthquakes here because of global warming.
So, Rabbi Seltzer,
All right.
where's God in all this then?
Well, God
It's
has
decided it's
God
sealed
has
by whom?
essentially said, I will quote a Talmudic statement of the rabbis, Olam noheg kamin hago. In other words, nature behaves as it is accustomed to behave. God is saying, unless you acknowledge first your fragility as human beings, that's what makes you a little lower than the angels, if you will. And B, when you have a chance to repair the world and to do things that will undo what we see about us, and you fail to do it, then don't look at me. I have invested you as being created in
Right.
the divine image. And I'm talking much too long, and I apologize.
Okay, so that's okay.
Enough.
No, that's fine. So let me just take that one point about nature, because that's a very good point. There's a midrash that most rabbis don't even know, that was written about the creation of the world, and it's an amazing text because it's related to this exactly. It says, when God created the world, He left one corner of it unfinished. You know, there's this tradition that when you build a house, you're supposed to leave a little bit of it unfinished, because nothing can be perfect in your life. It's not, perfection is up to God, not up to you. So you leave a corner of your house unfinished. So there's this midrash that said God created the world, but one corner is unfinished. What comes out of it? Hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, fires, earthquakes. So there is this revelation by the rabbis that there's going to be destruction, not ordained by God, but nature is part of the natural component of creation, which is your point, which is part of your point. Great.
Yeah, no, I'm interested because so I'm reflecting on whether I still stay in the room with Rabbi Seltzer's answer, right? No, of course it's up to me. I'll make my own decision. But, there's at least an element of your answer, which is, there's something that humans have done and we suffer the consequences, right? So am I understanding at least part of your, yeah. So then Leah Melinda Schreiber, right? Then are we saying to them, well, there's partly, your dad, right? Your husband is suffering the consequences of humans' behavior in general, or a consequence of his own behavior? That's my question. What did you? Oh, God, we got an answer. We got an answer. Yeah, please.
If their loved one died, it's not because their loved one did something wrong, and it's not because the rest of society did something wrong. It's the natural order of things that we're going to die, and some of us before our time, as far as our loved ones are concerned, and before our time, as far as we're concerned, we want to live a richer, fuller, longer life. But I think, if I'm understanding you, you're really at a higher level. You're asking if God knows all this.
Don't know about that.
Well, I'm bringing us maybe up to a higher level. If God knows all this, if God has pre-decided which one of us here is going to be struck during the year, then what does that say about our capacity to do anything about it? And so when my husband says it's prayer, repentance, and righteous acts temper the decree, is that really true? If it's already been decided that we're going to get cancer this year and we're still going to do everything we can to beat it, does that really mean that we're going to be able to change the outcome?
That's a brilliant question. Hold on, Rabbi. Wait, that is a brilliant question, because the question is it tempering God's decree upon you or your understanding of how you operate in the environment? So if you are living according to God's will by operating with teshuvah and tzedakah, when you're doing those purposeful things to carry out God's will, then you're coming to grips with your own fragility a lot easier, because you're fulfilling a purpose. Your life is not meaningless.
We have
I
an
quoted you
answer
exactly,
from,
right?
Ruth over here.
Okay.
We've got a Ruth over there.
Okay.
And then Tony.
It's been done for years and years, and
The prayer
for
has been done
centuries,
for years
yes.
and years. Yeah.
and I think we can't.
No,
I
you
don't
can
think
use the
we should
microphone. Go ahead,
throw
you're fine.
anything out.
Oh, no. Finish your thought, Ruth, because I want everyone to hear it. Finish your thought. Just say what you said again.
It's been
just so
part of our
everybody can
Oh,
hear
tradition.
it.
I think it's important to include it because it connects us with our past. It's been done for centuries and centuries and centuries, and I think it's very important, and it gives people something to think about.
Yeah, so
Okay, great.
so by the way, Rabbi, that was the argument that defeated
Against
me.
you
in
at that rabbinic
that was
convention,
the
right.
argument that all the rabbis said, hey, Rabbi Lockheim, we've been doing it for years. It's tradition. We're not going to take it out. People are going to miss it.
Right.
And
Oh.
regardless of the theology, they said this is part of the High Holy Day ritual, and it's got to stay, regardless of whether the Reformed theology has moved in a different direction or not.
Okay, great. Yeah. And then Tony, and then we're going to, and then, got it, Jean. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I didn't see your hand earlier. I'm so
So I'm gonna make this like an AA meeting. I'm a bad Jew because
Welcome, Tony. Oh, is that it? Right.
because I don't believe in any of the supernatural stuff. I believe I come here because I want to learn about to be inspired to do tikkun olam, and make our community a better place. And frankly, during the services, I get a lot of cognitive dissonance about things that I say, and I think the part about doing righteous deeds is good, but is prayer going to do things? I don't think so. But thing is, we have to move with the times and make our Judaism relevant, because if we do things like we've done them 200 years ago, people aren't going to be engaged, and we have to think about keeping Judaism alive and active for the next generation, and relevant to today. And something like this, where God's up there thinking, I think this guy's going to die and this guy's going to die, doesn't really mean much to me.
For those of you at home, Rabbi Lockheim's working hard, carrying the microphone around the room. Yes, Jean.
I had all that carrot cake. I'm
Yeah,
trying to work
great.
it off.
When I have read and sung this prayer for many, many years, I look at this whole thing differently, I guess, than most people, because I do not believe that God is up there saying he's controlling my life and your life. I don't believe that. I don't believe in that kind of a personal God. I think that I escaped from California, so I don't have to worry about being killed by earthquakes anymore. And wildfires are something that's happened the past few years, so I don't have to worry that much about that either. And I don't think that God's telling me I'm going to die of cancer because I've tried to live a healthy life so that I won't get cancer. I mean, you never know, but I think I'm more in control of what's going to happen to me unless I'm out on the highway and somebody kills me. But I don't think that was because that was in God's plan for me. So
what's your connection with this prayer, except that maybe you enjoy the music, and do you have a connection to the words?
No, I look at it as something like somebody said was written way back in
Right.
a different time when people, I think, believed more in that. And I just simply don't relate to that in that way. I just think it's an interesting, who will.
Wait, would you
I
have
mean,
stood?
who knows?
Would you have stood up with me in San Francisco and say, "Let's expunge it. Don't put it in"?
Or would you have walked out the room?
No, wait, I want to see if she's going to stand up with me and with the other rabbis and say, "Let's get rid of this." Would you have stood up with me?
I don't think so. It's kind of an interesting thought, but I don't necessarily think we have to get rid of it. It's kind of like who will, but I don't think it's because God's deciding it.
Okay.
so-
Okay, well, that's a key component. I'm just going to read as Rabbi
Okay.
Lockheim's going over to this side of the room. I'm just going to read from Sandra Frost. We do have a choice with a virus and other destructive things that we can help fix with a vaccine or doing things that keep us healthy and getting cancer. So that's up to us. Sandra's
love to
given
get
us
to
a certain amount of choice in the matter. Yes, Sue.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing great.
So my first question is whether Reformed theology has in fact moved past this.
I'm in a
This-
different place, so it's
well,
just me.
I
It's-
understand
yeah,
that,
yeah,
but,
I can't
but the
say you asked me a
Reformed
direct
movement
question.
in general,
I,
have they
I know. I mean, honestly, when I talk about theology, I always give a public health warning that it's incredibly dangerous to be 100% sure about any theology. And the beautiful thing about Judaism is that the theology is incredibly rich and varied. Okay, so it's not really a problem if your personal theology is different to Herb's, right? Or different to Tom's, right? You're going to find something within Jewish heritage for you, actually.
So here's
So
the
it's not a
interesting
problem.
thing. So I've been teaching conversion classes for 40 years, and I've allowed a great latitude from my class. In fact, when I've sat in on Beit Din, a Beit Din where you have 3 rabbis interviewing a candidate for conversion, rarely do my colleagues talk about God. I mean, I can't even recall the last time one of my colleagues have asked a question of the candidate, what do you believe in God? Maybe it's become taboo. But when I talk to them in class, I get a wide variety of theological positions. At the core of my Jewish converts system, you know, for them to convert to Judaism, is we reinforce this idea that there's a value system that's important to become Jewish. Your idea about God can be as varied as the rabbis. I mean, you have the biblical version, which most people reject. You know, God is angry, God's going to beat you up, God's going to bury you. You know, to the mystical, which is you've got 13 sphirot, 10 sphirot, you got to balance in your body and figure out which attribute of God is going to be dominant or balanced with another one, and so many other forms. So we cover a lot of different approaches to what our relationship with God is, whether it's very few have this idea they're going to walk into a sanctuary and say, God, give me a Rolls Royce, you know, outside the sanctuary when services are over. No one's praying like that. You know, the prayer is to open you up to a value system, open you up to ideas.
So we had a group, we had a few hands over here, and then...
You want to hand it back?
So let me just see. We got Sue and Adrian, right? We're going to come back this way, and then we're going to look at a couple of the texts, okay? So anyone who puts their hand up after that, we will get to you, but only at Beth, okay? But only after we've done a couple of the texts.
One more very brief comment.
Sure.
The word bashert plays a very important part in my life. Okay?
Yeah?
So that sense of fate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is central to my life and our life together.
Well, so it's interesting. We've been talking about doing a StoryCorps presentation for the congregation on different themes, and I think the Beshert idea would be a great StoryCorps that we could do in the congregation, people sharing their Beshert stories. So I'm locking that in because that's great. Adrian.
If you don't take this 100% literally, like God's
Right.
up there with a checklist,
Sure.
to me what it's basically saying is everybody's going to die
Right.
sometime.
Okay.
And it's telling us about our frailty, but it's also telling us about that we are finite, that there is, and we don't know if it's this year, and we don't know if it's next year or 20 years from now, but it is going to happen sometime. So to me, what it's telling us is that if we want to do good things and right things, we have a limited time to do it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right, really
So-
appreciate it. We'll go
You
into
all are
silence.
convincing me to keep it in and we're moving. You're convincing me. All right, where are we going over here?
Simon and then
Yeah.
Rabbi Seltzer. We did have to be fair. Beth did. I just didn't see your hand, so we're going to get Beth and Sheldon involved as well.
So without specific regard to Unatana Tokef, a few years ago, sitting in a small room with about a dozen other people with Rick Saracen, when this book was in an early draft stage, he must have been talking about you. Because the argument back and forth about whether Unatana Tokef should be retained or discarded was a major topic of conversation, along with
such things as the way they broke up the shofar service,
Right.
the alternate readings. I mean, it was in an
not as
early draft
important.
stage at the time. But he must have been talking about you and others who feel the way you do.
I
Okay,
was the
great.
only one who spoke up, I'm telling you.
Back to
Will
Beth.
you take it back to
All
Beth?
the way back to
Simon, will
Rabbi
you take...
Seltzer was next? Okay, great.
Okay, all
Rabbi
right.
Seltzer, yeah, sure.
I just have two questions with one comment. Amnon never existed. He is not. He was never living in. This is fictitious. It was attributed to him. So you have to ask yourself, why did the rabbis who created this story cite him, and why did they include it? But the two questions I want to ask of both of you, given the givens: A, are you prepared to delete Unatana Tokef from the service on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? And my second question is, if you are you also prepared to delete the Kedusha that immediately follows? Because the Kedusha, which immediately follows all of the challenges that you have posed as to why it should not be recited, is a praise of the God who has instituted this particular very powerful prayer.
I don't want to give my I don't want to give my answer about whether I'm keeping it in or not quite yet. I'll absolutely give it at the end of the discussion, though, Rabbi Seltzer. I appreciate the question, but I don't want to prejudice other people's input until that moment.
So it's interesting. I was trying to struggle myself through the Unatan Tofek book, Who by Fire, the book by Fire, edited by Hoffman. But if you go on the premise that this prayer is saying things that God will do this, like we do. There's all this stuff in our prayer and our tradition. It's about that I have trouble connecting with in the sense of what the literal meaning is of like praising God, praise God, this. Because I'm a bit agnostic. I'm not really clear on my idea of God. But I am clear that we're connected from the past to the present to the future by these traditions, by doing that. Mm-hmm. And the prayer itself, you can read it to say that God decides this person's going to die, or you can read it to say is we aren't in control. Whatever it is, chance, God, doesn't really matter. So we give it up. We're not control. Like these things are going to happen. The commentary there is like, I'm the person that happens to. These things are going to happen, and we just acknowledge the truth of that.
Okay, no, appreciate that. And then Rabbi Lockheim, Dr. Claire down the front wanted to make a comment. But for me, while you're getting there, Beth, for me, it's important. The prayer. The way you read it really depends, and how you react to it really depends on who you think is in control. That's the thing, yeah.
Years ago, I attended my nephew's circumcision, and I looked at the baby, and I said, "What a beautiful child." And my mother poked me,
Yep.
and she said to me in Yiddish, "Mizok das nit."
Yep.
You don't say that. I said, "Why?" Because the opposite's going to happen. And that's what she believed. And I grew up in an Orthodox home. I went to Hebrew school. I learned how to read Hebrew. I was never told what it meant. So finally, I still attend services mainly because it's my culture. And I'm also very disturbed. We have a large congregation, and nobody shows up.
But your contention, you're relating to this discussion, Sheldon, because you don't necessarily know what every single word means in this prayer or indeed in others, and so it's not necessarily you're not worried so much, right? Because you're not here for that reason.
Yeah, and one final point: 1 month before my bar mitzvah, my father died, and I said, "What the hell's going on here?"
Right.
So in order to do well, you have to pick the right set of parents.
Okay.
How'd that go for you?
And my grandfather outlived, and my
Can he answer that?
grandfather
I
outlived
should
my
have asked
father.
him in Yiddish.
And your
And my grandfather outlived my father.
Yeah,
okay.
that's
We're
sad.
going to come back to you, Tony, in a second. I just want to look at a couple of these to see if they help us. And after each reading, you're going to say, do we stay in the room, right? Or another version of the question we're asking, does it stay in the book? All right? So Rabbi Ed Feinstein, right, it was the rabbi at Valley Beth Shalom for many years, right, in Los Angeles. I sat in shul for years reading these words before I realized the answer. The answer to each of these questions is, the answer to the question, who will be taken before their time, etc., the answer is me. Who will live and who will die? I will. Who at their end and who not at their end? Me. Like every human being, when I die, it will be at the right time and it will also be too soon. Fire, water, earthquake, plague. In my lifetime, I've been scorched and drowned, shaken and burdened, wandering and at rest, tranquil and troubled. That has been my life's journey. Of course, I prefer to deflect this truth. I'd much prefer to let the prayers talk about someone else, perhaps the fellow in the next row. It's taken a lifetime to reveal that defense as a lie. The prayer's not about someone else, it's about me. It's a frightfully succinct summary of my existence. And now, I read it again, but in the first person, and it makes me shiver. I will live and I will die at the right time, before my time. I will wander, but I might yet find rest. I'll be troubled, but I may achieve tranquility. This is the central truth of the High Holy Days. There we go. Rabbi Seltzer, do you feel vindicated? Okay, good. You're in the Feinstein camp, right? Yes, chalk one up. This is what makes them Yamim Noraim, days of terror. We are vulnerable, okay? So I just want to bring that in just because, just to reinforce that part of our discussion. But I want to, and I don't want to dwell on it because we've already covered that ground really helpfully. So if you go to the next page, from Rabbi Margaret Moers-Weinig, judge and shepherd, right? In truth, it says in the prayer, you are judge. And then later, as a shepherd considers the flock. So which is it, judge or shepherd? So judge and shepherd play different roles. The shepherd, who has his sheep pass under his staff, is the same shepherd who makes me lie down in green pastures, who restores my soul. The shepherd's job is to protect his sheep from predators and accidents, thirst and starvation, and to find and rescue them if they wander off and become lost. How can one be both judge and shepherd? Parents who impose expectations upon us may also care for us. A teacher who grades us may also encourage us. An employer who could fire us may stop us from doing something foolish, steer us back on course, and never tell us so. So how can we judge and shepherd? God is judge and shepherd. How do we have the two things in the same place? Yeah? Well, Tony was going to speak next, and then Beth. Absolutely.
You're going to make me run?
Wow, I mean, glide.
I mean, this is going to be kind of an interesting week because the 3-part Ken Burns documentary is on about the Holocaust in the United States.
On Sunday, PBS.
Yeah. And I don't know, my wife is out of town, so I had a choice tonight of going out and doing some debauchery or coming here. I decided to come here. But I guess, I've learned a lot because my wife's grandparents, they both lost their families in concentration camps, and they met in a DP camp where my wife's mother was born. But, it brings up the question when we look at things like this is if God is up there judging and making the decisions, how the hell could he have allowed that happen? And also, how do people that went through that go on, with their lives? I've always kind of been intrigued by that. So.
But wait, does this relate to judge and shepherd?
Well, I was thinking, I thought I had before, but...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I did go on to it.
Okay.
It's fine, because I did say Tony was next. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm trying to stay on task.
Beth, though.
If you believe in God and the concept of monotheism, you can't say, I mean, so much of like reading fantasy or even Christianity is about dualism. It's about like, God is the good and bad. No, God, if there's one God, God is good, evil, God is judge, God is shepherd, God is all. God is male, God is female, God is neither.
Okay, great.
For the...
one of the... Oh, I don't need both microphones. Yeah. I got excited there. But one of the ways that we answer the question, judge or shepherd is that, sure, God is everything and all of those things, but certainly in Jewish mysticism, right, God can be the chesed and the din. the overflowing kindness, and then also, the boundary judgment, and they're different aspects of the same thing. And you can have that balance. And we're told right, the rabbis tell us that if God was only one thing and only judge, then the world would be destroyed. And if, God was only shepherd and kindness, then there would be anarchy. And so we have to hold both in the same breath. I'm conscious of the fact that we don't have a lot more time.
No, we do.
Yeah, we do?
Yeah, because we're doing things a little bit differently. So
Okay. I see. We got.
Yeah. So we have till about 9 o'clock, and then we'll take a break. And then we'll do a Havdalah. Yeah.
So I have a really thorny problem though with a certain Rabbi Leonard Cohen. So if you can just have a look at this last text, because I've always had a problem here. And I need you to help me solve it. So, we can sing, right? Are we allowed to sing? No, I think it's more like, I don't want to, there's a copyright, or, right?
No, you can sing, you just can't play the recording.
Ah, okay. Then we can sing together. Who by fire?
Oh, you can't?
Who by water?
Oh, wait, what's the story? Oh, okay.
Who in the sunshine? Who in the nighttime? Who by high ordeal? Tell me when we have to be cut off. Who by common trial? Who in your merry, merry month of May? Who by very slow decay? And who shall I say is calling? Are you related? Of course I'm related, yeah. Somewhere along the line. So of course, you can understand from this Leonard Cohen song, he's obviously riffing on Unatane Tokef, our prayer, and obviously at the same time, there's a certain transparency to the song, and by mentioning the various demises and putting them in a modern context, right? Ways of dying that we might understand a little bit more now than when the prayer was composed. The problem I have is, who shall I say is calling? Right? What's he trying to do with that? It's a very, very strange way of ending each verse. So what do you think Cohen, the esteemed Cohen, is trying to do with that, the ending of the verse? Yes, Rabbi Seltzer. And then...
I love Leonard Cohen. Some of you may have seen his documentary at the Loft not that long ago. And you may be singing his Hallelujah on Yontif, I don't know. The melody is fantastic. He grew up in I think the largest conservative shul in Montreal, Sharei Shemayim. His entire family was active. His grandfather and I think his father were also presidents of the congregation. And so he had a very powerful Jewish background, which he never abandoned totally. He had a very wild life, and he would be the first to tell you that he had a very wild life on the Greek island of Hydra. He had multiple relationships. He studied with monks, etc. And I think perhaps, and I don't know, when he asks who is calling, he is struggling, as are we. Is this the Rabbonu Shel Olam with whom I grew up, about whom I put my tefillin on when I finally rejected it and so forth? Or is it a figment of my imagination? I'm not sure, he's asking. And I think on the basis of this conversation even, and even those of us who did not speak, I think each of us asked the same question, and maybe even more so than ever before during these Yomim Noraim, during these high holidays. If I may, just one last thing about Leonard Cohen. One of the women with whom he had a relationship was a woman named Mary Ann. She was dying in a hospital. He wrote her a letter in which he said to her, among other things, I wanted to touch base with you. Hopefully, I will meet you shortly. It was part of a song, Oh, So Long, Mary Ann, and so forth. 2 months after her death, she died. He died, excuse me. He died. I think of that when we talk about immortality, the meaning of Kaddish. We will recite Yizkor on Yom Kippur afternoon, El Molei Rachamim, all kinds of questions that Cohen in his own way, I think, helped us ponder.
We've got Beth and then Lynn Ray is the order I saw it in. Beth's over there. Really appreciate that, Rabbi. You know, that's certainly helping me get on the way to an answer about who shall I say is calling, and he's really struggling. He's really struggling. So he's wondering. Okay, wonderful. Yes, Beth.
Thank you, Rabbi Seltzer. I was just going to say that documentary at the Loft is still playing, and it's really fantastic. And he wrote 180 verses and recorded several different versions of the song. So, but he took him 7 years to write this song, and it was all part of his struggles, like from him going to the monastery or things like that. He was writing this song, and and I think that's what Atanatov does for us. It's like we're struggling, trying to find the answers.
Okay, great.
You
Thank
know the
so
funny
much.
story. There's a funny story where Leonard Cohen is talking to Paul Simon on how long it took him to write "Bridge Over Troubled Water," and Paul Simon said, "Oh, I'm sorry, what?" But no. Bridge Over Troubled Water. Yeah, it's not Dylan. Yeah, Paul Simon. So Paul Simon said, an afternoon, 30 minutes, something like that. And he asked Leonard Cohen, how long did it take you to compose Hallelujah, which he never finished? 7 years. So.
Could you translate Unatana Tokef? What is it?
Translate Unatana Tokef. To look for the Hebrew.
Well, the tokef is like strength, it's power, okay? So it's, taneh, it's like repeating or saying. So let's talk about, this is not what it says in the book, but let's talk about the power, right, of this day. I think that's a good way to go. Yeah.
We obviously have a lot of fans of Leonard Cohen. If I'm not mistaken, this song didn't get published until his last album, which came out right after his death. So if he is asking this question and he's been writing it for a long time, if I'm not mistaken, it did come out after his death.
He took a long time with a lot of his work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it would be appropriate with what you were also saying of the coincidence, quote unquote, of when Marianne died and his contemplation, etc. But I also, whenever I read this and with what we've been talking about, speaking about Bob Dylan, he wrote a song when he was really questioning his Judaism, and it was, you gotta serve somebody. Okay, the whole song came back, just like, and who shall I say is calling, was you gotta serve somebody.
Okay, you've got to serve somebody. Fantastic. I like the conversation happening across between the composers. So where are we, right? You wanted to expunge it, right? You've outed yourself, Rabbi Lockheim. I have to confess, I always, not just to have the back and forth between the two of us, but I'm always a firm believer in keeping the difficult stuff in. I think if we...
Well, it's not, no, I love difficult stuff because it challenges you to think. That's fine.
Okay.
The question is whether it's right or wrong
Got
to
it.
keep it in, not whether it's difficult. And what convinced me was, besides your, all of your testimonies, was this piece by Edward Feinstein, because I'm reading a book by Adam Grant, which I suggest to all of you. You'll hear parts of it during one of my High Holy Day sermons. It's a book I think he wrote in 2021 called Think Again. And one of the things he said is that, that one really has to be shaken, stirred, scorched to get out of your totalitarian ego, which is so convinced of what you think is right or wrong in order to get to the truth. So I love this Feinstein part where he says, I've been scorched, I've been drowned and things like that. The question I have on the High Holy Days for all of you is, what do you do with your being scorched and shaken up? Are you being shaken up and going, oh, I hadn't thought about it. Maybe I can look at it a different way. One of the things he talks about is scientists rarely have a eureka moment. Scientists, when they're doing their experiments and they have their hypotheses and things like that, they're moving in a particular direction. But when they see something new, it's not eureka, it's funny. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. And so the question is, during our life this year, when we're shaken, scorched, earthquake, plague, whatever it is, are we going to come to a revelation and get rid of that totalitarian ego that's so convinced about everything we thought we truly believe in, and go, funny, maybe I should look at it differently. So I'm going to keep it.
No. I'm going to come back to you, Lynn Ray. So just that the blows that we take during the year, that they're actually, at least in some cases, helpful. Right. Because they push us to think again or think differently.
Think again.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things, just one last point,
Sure.
and that is, he did an interview with Margaret Hoover. Margaret? Yeah, Hoover. Yeah. Firing line. You need to record her. She's the best interviewer on TV. So he said, it's not that great. You don't want to get similar people together who agree with each other and stuff like that. He said it's wrong that great minds think alike. It's great minds think again. Help you think again. Think differently. And he used a William F. Buckley interview with Allard Lowenstein, right, who was, way liberal. He's way conservative. He had Lowenstein. It was one of his most celebrated guests. They'd have great discussions, and they'd have these aha or ha-ha moments together. And so it's great minds help us think again.
Wonderful.
So we have to finish in just this
well,
moment.
Lynn Ray, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to witness what you just said about the change of thoughts and scorched that you were bringing up.
Yeah, Rabbi Lockheim said it.
Here's what I'd like to say.
I was just reinforcing.
I was a wayward Jew, okay? I really did not attend services, et cetera, until my husband died. And I came to the synagogue here, to Or Hadash, when it was at the Daughters of the Revolution, or whoever they
Junior
were.
League.
That's them, the Junior League. I went to the Junior League.
I love that.
I knew it was somebody like that. And from that, and from what happened in that meeting, 7 days after the High Holy Days, I took my scorched, broken heart and built it around my Judaism.
Yeah.
So who's to say, if you don't die and if you live, what you're going to do with what you've experienced?
Great. Absolutely. And, and I like Rabbi Locke, I do want to keep the prayer in the book. And don't forget, the prayer books that we have are incredibly smart, right? The prayer book that we're going to use at Kolami, it has so many study passages, commentaries, and rebuttals even to this prayer and other prayers. And so the wonderful thing about us in the 21st century, we have such a rich prayer life and a rich bunch of voices on all of these issues. And so when we do this prayer on the Tane Tokef, we proclaim the strength, the power of the day, then we're going to do it in context. We're going to introduce it, right? We're going to give the commentary afterwards, and we're going to say the prayer in the middle, but we're cradling it in a discussion, a really smart, rich discussion that we're able to do in Kolami and not just read that prayer by rote, but absolutely put it in context. So thanks, everybody, for studying with us. We're going to take a 15-minute break. 10-minute break. 10-minute break, and then come back here. We're going to change our Torah mantles to...
We do Havdalah
and then
mantles
change
in our
Torah
in our
mantles.
service.
Okay,
Right.
wonderful. All right, see you in a few.
back. We're going to change the mantles, and I'm going to ask for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. If there are 16 of us, it's easier to do it in pairs. So I'm going to have couples come up. You don't have to be related to each other, but I'm going to have couples come up next to all of the different scrolls. And Herb, yours is this one. Okay, yours and Sue's is this one. And then right after that, then we'll have our Selichot service. And it looks like I'm sounding the shofar. So we'll see how that goes. So Havdalah, as you know, is a separation between the Sabbath and the rest of the week. And I love the image of the twisted candle representing Shabbat and the 7 days of the week twisted together. They're not really segregated. All of the rabbis always talk about all the days of the week are numbered except for Shabbat. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They all lead to Shabbat. So they really are part together. So even if we're having a tough time, even as Unatan HaTokef says, we're shaken, we're stern, we're scorched, we're parched, whatever, the idea in our morning prayers anyways, there's a different psalm that we read every single morning traditionally, and it leads to a resolution that's going to happen on Shabbat. So if you're having a problem on Monday, it'll be resolved on Shabbat. Having a problem on Tuesday, resolved. So everything will be resolved on Shabbat. The wine is representing the sweetness of the moment. The spices is from this tradition that we have an extra soul. And this is a lecture I'm going to have Rabbi Seltzer give at some point, because there are multiple souls, but you really only have one soul. But there are attributes of your soul that are touched by God in different ways. And on Shabbat you get another one, and it returns to God. And in order to avoid us from passing out, we have the smelling salts. Okay? All right. I'm glad you saw the humor in that. So I think we're on page, well, if you can see.
It doesn't matter what page we're on.
Well, if anyone wants to follow.
I'll give them the words.
No, I know, but it's on page 3. Some of us are visual.
It's hard
if
to
you
read
can see it.
in the dark.
We'll leave it up to you.
You know, I know you're all comfortable, but if you want to stand up and get a little closer and sing together, it would be really much nicer than having you sit like an audience. Lie, lie, la 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 lie, 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 la 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 lie, lie, la 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 lie, 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 la la lie, la la lie, 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 la 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 lie, 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 la 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 lie, lie, la 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 lie, 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 la la lie, la la lie. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. When you say Shavua Tov, look at somebody you love. Shavua Tov, 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 Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimera ve'yameinu, Yomo Eleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi. Shavua Tov. Hagut Tavoch. All right, just kidding.
All right, so we need the lights back on. So I think because there are not a lot of us here, take your single sheets and why don't all of you come up, stand next to one of the Torah scrolls, but bring your sheets. You don't need your books, just the sheets.
Let me take your guitar.
So stand behind a Torah scroll you're choosing. Do you two want to? Yeah, come on. Why don't you take the one on the end?
Is there an extra sheet? Oh, okay.
What's that? Oh, we have tons. I just have to find mine now. No. There's like 30 in the back. So okay, we all ready? You all have a Torah scroll? Okay, we can all hover. That's fine. Okay. So, Rabbi, will you begin with the first couple paragraphs?
Middle of the night, we Jews have gathered to begin the days of war. Selichot means apologies. Have we made our apologies? Have we stood face to face with those we've wronged during the year or in years past? Have we told them I'm sorry? Have we forgiven those who have approached us with contrition? If not, now when? Now's the time for teshuvah, repentance from the heart, turning and changing. Now is the time to let go of the past and move into the future with a clean and pure heart. Each year on Selichot, we prepare our souls for the high holy days when we will judge ourselves and when God will judge us.
On Selichot, we also prepare our sanctuary. To help us change and reach for holiness, we change our Torah covers to white ones to signify purity and sanctity. Tonight, we will witness this change together. Let's all read together. As the Torah covers go from dark to white, so may our motives and our actions change from greed to generosity, from selfishness to compassion, from fear to faith, and from indifference to righteousness. Our days are shameful. How can we complain? What can we say? What can we declare? How can we justify what we have done? In the darkness of the night, let us search our ways and probe them together and return to you, gentle presence, source of our lives.
As we change these mantles
on our precious Torahs tonight, may our own darkness gently turn toward the light of holy. May God discover our righteous deeds with the dawning of a new day, nurturing and compassionate presence. Turn our lamentation to exaltation and our sorrow to joy. So I'd like for you to do is take the talit that is on your Torah scroll, place it on the pew, the first pew right in front of you. So you have a pew right behind you. Sheldon, just place it, place those there. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is for the person who's sitting next to the base of the Torah to grab the Atzei Chaim.
That's
So,
the wooden
are you doing
part.
this here? Stand there, Beth. All right, so you're going to pull it back. No, pull back, and then tilt it upwards. Okay, so take the silver off. We should have taken your silver off. Okay, so why don't you come over here? And you can take the silver off, put it on the fuse. Okay, so just leave it there, that's fine. So just pull that off. So take the belts. So then you want to take the belts off. And then put the white belts on. Good. And then tilt it back up in the air. There you go. Perfect. All right, let's lift that up. And then pull that down. Go ahead and straighten that out. Here, hold on to this cam. There you go. So you're not going to put silver, you're not going to put the silver back on. Just leave the silver where it is. Leave the silver where it is. That's fine. We're going to leave them unadorned right now. Okay, so take your sheets again. Grab your sheets. And so you can just that's great. Herb, can you pull that? You got it? Okay. So in his commentary to Pirkei Avot, the acclaimed Maharal of Prague, Rabbi Yehuda Leva writes, all of the divine commandments are one, a single unity. This idea finds expression in the verse, a commandment is like a flame. However, the Torah is not the mere sum of many individual flames. Rather, the Torah is light. The Torah, which contains all the individual commandments, is a single unified light. The flames unite to form one great light together.
Our scrolls are renewed for us now. We know what we should do. Therefore, caring presence, source of our lives, our eyes are upon you. May your kindness be upon us. Do not recall our misdeeds. Let us no longer outrun your goodness and mercy. Let your Torah guide us in pleasant and righteous ways this year.
Okay, so what I'd like for those who have Torahs on these tables, and no, these are good. So the Torahs on those tables, cover those with the talit. We're going to place these Torah scrolls, these 5 Torah scrolls in this ark right now. So if we get 2 volunteers to go up and open the ark doors for us. And if anyone can grab a Torah scroll, if it's
light enough.
So there's a chord there. There you go.
Those need to be covered and left there.
Oh, this is the front. Only Sarah can tell. Okay, so you can return to your seats and grab your prayer books. We're up here? Okay. You don't have any opening song, right? That's fine. Let's turn to page 12. Jewish history, in its tragedy and dignity, is a history of choice, a resolve on behalf of God, and therefore a history full of suffering. The Jewish people never become the mere object of its faith. It remained a creator full of resolve and upright in spirit, even in times of affliction. In a history which merely recounts external events, the Jews seem to be tossed about as a plaything of nations. But in a history which looks to spiritual power and activity, the Jewish people is seen as a force making its own decisions and affecting its genuine realization. Its life is a fulfillment. Its history possesses nobility, if a true nobility is taken to mean a unity of inheritance and achievement. It possesses faith and deed, growth and accomplishment. This nobility Judaism assigns to each individual. We continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, which some of you may or may not have in your books, on page 20. If it's a blank, you still know what it is in your heart.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכו בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו.
Amen. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם ועולמיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה ולילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דם ירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
The refrain to the next part repeats over and over. Lishmoa on page 21. It's the bottom line of the Hebrew, and it's only 5 words. Lishmoa el harina ve'el hatefila. Lishmoa el harina ve'el hatefila. במוצאי מנוחה קידמנוך תחילה הט אוזנך ממרום יושב תהילה לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
Shabbat has ended, still we stand before you. O God of praises, hearken from on high.
Oh,
hear our song and our prayer. לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
For Father Isaac's sake, who gave himself to you, shield his children who cried to you this night.
Oh, hear our song and our prayer. לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
From heaven's heights, turn to us who turn to you, to all who in singleness of heart seek you.
Oh, hear our song and our prayer.
לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
Trembling in your presence like a woman in travail, humbly we beseech, blot out our transgressions. O hear our song and our prayer.
לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
Creator of your worlds, every creature, sustainer of all, sustain us now. O
Hear our song and our prayer. לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
Though the sins of your people are too many to count, we plead for your mercy, exalted one. Raise us up once more.
Oh, hear our song and our prayer. לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
Have regard to our suffering and not to our shortcomings. Cleanse us who cry out to you, wondrous God.
Oh, hear our song and our prayer. לשמוע אל הרינה ואל התפילה.
Be our offering this night acceptable, a sacrifice of old, maker of miracles. Make us to see the miracle of forgiveness.
Oh, hear our song and our prayer.
So we invite Tony to read the next portion from the bottom of 23 to the top of 24.
Now is the time for turning. The leaves are beginning to turn from green to red and orange. The birds are beginning to turn and are heading once more towards the south. The animals are beginning to turn to storing their food for the winter. For leaves, birds, and animals, turning comes instinctively. But for us, turning does not come so easily. It takes an act of will for us to make a turn. It means breaking with old habits. It means admitting that we've been wrong. And this is never easy. It means losing face. It means starting all over again. And this is always painful. It means saying, I'm sorry. It means recognizing that we have the ability to change. These things are terribly hard to do. But unless we turn, we'll be trapped forever in yesterday's ways. Lord, help us to turn from callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love, from pettiness to purpose, from envy to contentment, from carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith. Turn us around, O Lord. Bring us back to you. Revive our lives as at the beginning. And turn us toward each other, Lord, for in isolation there is no life.
The words to this version are on the screen behind us. Hashiveni ve'ashuva. Hashiveni ve'ashuva. Chadesh, 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 Yameinu kekedem. Chadesh, Chadesh, Yameinu ישיבני ואשובה חדש, חדש, חדש ימינו כקדם. חדש, חדש ימינו כקדם.
Towards the foot of page 25. Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God. Return, all you have stumbled. For thus says the eternal God, the Holy One of Israel, in returning in peace shall you triumph. In calm trust you shall find strength. You are a stronghold to the poor, a shelter from the storm, a shade from the heat. Lord, let me return to you. Let me come to you. Reach out to me. I am alone, alone, empty-hearted, afraid of myself. Let me come to you. Reach out to me. You are a shelter from the storm, a shade from the heat. Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God. Behold, how the Eternal One does great things with this people. Behold the Most High, who heaps miracle upon wonder. Return, O Israel, return. You are a stronghold to the poor, a crown of glory to all who stumble and fall, to all who rise and return.
Shomer, shomer Yisrael, Shmo sherit Yisrael. Shomer, shomer Yisrael, Shmo sherit Yisrael. Ve'al yovad, ve'al yovad Yisrael, ve'al yovad, ve'al yovad Yisrael haomerim, 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 haomerim Shema Yisrael. Shomer, shomer goy echad, Shmo sherit am echad. Shomer, shomer goy echad, Shmo sherit am echad. Ve'al yovad, ve'al yovad goy echad, ve'al yovad, ve'al yovad goy echad ham yachadim, shimcha, shimcha Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad.
We invite Louise to continue as our reader on page 27.
Who turns the house of Israel? To be a Jew in the 20th century is to be offered a gift. If you refuse, wishing to be invisible, you choose death of the spirit, the stone insanity. Accepting, take full life, full agonies, your evening deep in the labyrinthine blood of those who resist, fall and resist, and God reduced to a hostage among hostages. The gift is torment, not alone the still torture, isolation, or torture of the flesh. That may come also, but the accepting wish, the whole and the fertile spirit as guarantee for every human freedom, suffering to be free, daring to live for the impossible.
We Jews are as the dew on every blade of grass trodden underfoot today and here tomorrow morning. Page 28. If you truly listen to me and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among the peoples. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Behold my servant whom I uphold, my chosen in whom my soul delights.
You are my witnesses, says the Lord, and my chosen servant.
To open blind eyes, to bring the captive out of dungeon, those who sit in darkness out of their prison.
It is not enough that you should be my servant, only to reestablish the tribes of Jacob and to restore the survivors of Israel.
I will make you a light to the nations, that my deliverance may reach to the ends of the earth.
Through you and through your descendants shall all the families of the earth be blessed.
We continue with our reader on page 31.
Tara will lead us now.
Mothering presence, enfold me, unfold me, and walk with me, and walk with me.
I need to turn to you. I need to walk with you. I need to rest in you.
Beloved, come to me, but not to win my wars. Beloved, come to me, but not to take my peace. Come, O loved one, but not to build my house.
If only you will walk with me. If only you will be with me. If only you will shelter me.
Maker of arithmetic, weaver of number worlds, redeemer of equalities, mother of odd, sister of even, creator of Aleph, author of Bet.
If only you will walk with me. If only you will shelter me.
If only you will be with me. Do not tell me no. Do not tell me no. Do not tell me no. Do not say my life adds up to naught.
If only you will shelter me. If only you will be with me. If only you will walk with me.
Nor say that 2 and 2 are always 4 and must be so.
Nor say because our hearts shall stop that love must end.
Tell me yes, that 2 and 2 need not make 4, for 5 and 7 will often do. And now, for now and then again, and now again, the sum I ask is life.
If only you will walk with me. If only you will be with me. If only you will be.
I swear that 1 and 1 are 3. I see it always so when lovers kiss and friends embrace.
If only you will walk with me. If only you will be.
Yes, although my heart is stone. Yes, because my heart is stone, I need to turn to you.
I need to hope in you. I need to turn to you. I need to rest in you.
Mother present in all presence in whom I am in whom I am present to. Move me, move all of us. Move head, move hand with the promise of your word, with the presence of your life. Move the heart in us that the stranger in our midst, and let it turn to flesh from stone. We need to turn to you.
We need to walk with
you.
We need to rest in you.
So the garden planted in our wilderness be safe from harm. So the planted flowers bloom while empires wither. So you be our dwelling place and we are free.
If only you will be with us. If only you will be.
Turn to page 36. As clay takes form in a potter's hand, so do we in yours.
Mold us into human form. You are the potter, we are but clay.
As words are shaped by a poet's hand, so are we by yours.
Make us your song.
You are the singer, we are your work.
As a ship takes its course from a sailor's hand, so do we from yours.
Set us on your chosen course. You are the sailor, we are your ship.
As threads are patterned by a weaver's hand, so are we by yours.
Weave us into your plan, O God. We are your people, you are our King.
This is a new version of Ki Anu Amecha that Rabbi Cohen introduced us to. And then I found out it was written by a classmate of mine who I've known for over 40 years. So it begins with a nigun, and you can learn it very quickly. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu anu Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 Anu nachalatecha ve'ata goraleinu Anu tzonecha ve'ata roeinu Anu harmecha ve'ata notreinu Anu ve'olatecha ve'ata yotzreinu We are your flock and you are our shepherd. We are your vineyard. You watch over us. We are your treasure. You are cherished one. We are your people. You are our God. Ya la 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 la.
Foot of 37, Sovereign God, whose throne is mercy, you guide the world with steadfast love, forgiving the transgressions of your people. You pardon all who sin, are generous with all who live, treating them with compassion. You have taught us, O God, your covenant with life. This day remember your covenant, revealed from of old to Moses the humble one. As it is written, the Lord descended in a cloud and stood with him there, and revealed the divine nature. The Lord passed before Moses and said,
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, El Rachum Vechanun, Erech Apayim, Verav Chesed,
Adonai, Adonai, Rachum v'chanun, Erech apayim, v'rav chesed, ve'emet. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'chanun, El Rachum v'chanun, Erech apayim, v'rav chesed,
The Lord God is merciful and gracious, endlessly patient, loving and true, showing mercy to thousands, forgiving our sin and granting pardon. We pray with Moses, pardon our sin, call us your own, call us your own. Lord our God and God of all generations, help us to overcome the impulse to do evil. You have created us able to do your will. but in our nature there is a wayward spirit that hinders us and keeps us from doing what we should. O Lord our God, help us to subdue it, so that we may, with a whole heart, make your will our own.
I should explain, Hashiveni is the singular of Hashivenu. So Hashivenu is asking, we ask, all of us are asking God to turn to us. But this one's a little bit more personal. This is us late at night singing to God by ourselves, even if we're in a group. Hashiveni ve'ashuva. Hashiveni ve'ashuva. Chadesh, 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 Yameinu kekedem. Chadesh, Chadesh, Yameinu kekedem.
Your mercy, O God of all life, extends to all who live. You turn from our transgressions that we may turn to you. For you love all beings, despising nothing that you have made. For how could you hate what you have established, and what would endure without your love? All things are touched by your grace, for they are yours. Lord, you take delight in life, for your eternal spirit dwells in all that breathes.
Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chos v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu kekedem.
Hear our voice. Lord our God, have compassion upon us, and with that compassion accept our prayer. Help us to return to you, O Lord, and then truly shall we return. Renew our days as of old. Consider our words, Lord. Look into our inmost thoughts. Do not cast us away from your presence. Do not remove your Holy Spirit. Do not dismiss us when we are old, as our strength diminishes. Do not abandon us. Do not abandon us, Lord our God. Do not be far from us. For you, Lord, do we wait, and you, our God, will answer.
Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Tavo
תפילתנו ואל תתעלם מתחינתנו שאין אנחנו עזפנים וקשי עורף לומר לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו אבל אנחנו חטאנו אבינו פשענו.
Our God, God of our mothers and fathers, grant that our prayers may reach you. Do not be deaf to our pleas. For we are not so arrogant and stiff-necked as to say before you, Lord our God, and God of all ages, we are perfect and have not sinned. Rather, do we confess, we have gone astray, we have sinned, we have transgressed.
Please rise. I'll remind you that this is an echo, and a tradition is to gently tap your heart when we list one of the transgressions to remind ourselves this is not something we should be doing. Hashamnu,
Hashamnu,
Bagadnu,
Bagadnu,
Gazalnu,
Gazalnu,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Dibarnu Dofi,
ay 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 He'evinu Vehirshanu Zadnu Hamasnu Tafalnu shaker ay 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 Yatsnura Kizavnu Latnu Maradnu Niatnu Sararnu Avinu Pashanu Tsararnu Kishinu Oref Ay 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 Rashanu Shichatnu Tiya Tiavnu.
Tiavnu.
Tainu. Titanu.
We all have committed offenses together. We confess these human sins, the sins of arrogance, bigotry, and cynicism, of deceit and egotism, flattery and greed, injustice and jealousy. Some of us kept grudges, were lustful, malicious, or narrow-minded. Others were obstinate or possessive, quarrelsome, rancorous, or selfish. There was violence, weakness of will, xenophobia.
We yielded to temptation and showed zeal for bad causes.
Now may it be your will, O Lord God of all the generations, to pardon all our sins, to forgive all our wrongdoings, and to blot out all our transgressions.
You can be seated. No, just the chord. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון.
The sin we have committed against you under duress or by choice.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזדון ובשגגה.
The sin we have committed against you consciously or unconsciously.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר.
The sin we have committed against you openly or secretly.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם.
The sin we have committed against you by hating without cause.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך במשא ובמתן.
The sin we have committed against you by dishonesty in business.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהונאת רעיה.
And the sin we have committed against you by hurting others in any way.
For all these, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement. ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו. ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו.
Page 45. God, before whom words must be true, we acknowledge our faults and our failings. Help us now to strengthen the good impulse within us. Help us to care about wrongs from which we've been spared, to seek forgiveness for the wrongs we shall do, to forgive the wrongs that are done to us. Create in us a clean heart and place a willing spirit within us. Shed your light upon us, O God, that we may see the goodness in each of your children. We rise for Avinu Malkeinu, page 45.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed ve'hoshienu. Aseh imanu
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Dirashnucha, Himatze Lanu.
Our God above, we seek you. Grant that we may find you.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Galech Avod Malchutecha Aleinu.
Our God above, reveal to us the glory of your kingdom.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Koveinu Lavodatecha.
Our God above, draw us near to your service.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Savei Tanu Birchotecha.
Our God above, grant us your blessings.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Savei Tanu Yeshuatecha.
Our God above, help us with your saving acts.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Shit Shalom Beineinu.
Our God above, let peace reign among us.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Ten Shalom Ba'aretz.
Our God above, grant peace to the earth.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Ten Sava Ba'olamach.
Our God above, grant abundance to our world.
Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Karev Lanu Ketz HaGeula.
Our God above, hasten for us the day of redemption. You can be seated. Hashiveni ve'ashuva. Hashiveni ve'ashuva. Chadesh, 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 Yameinu kekedem. Chadesh, Chadesh, Yameinu kekedem. Everybody take a deep breath. Tekiah Gedolah. Shakoach.
As you came in peace, may you also go in peace. Thank you for joining us.